Hi, Jessica Nadav bringing you this week's Davar Torah on Parashat Teruma. Firstly, I'd like to dedicate this year for the Refuah Shlema of Eric Yitzchak ben Miriam, Chava Freidel bat Edita Malka, Shimon ben Sarah, and Shemuel Yosef ben Rachel. Now, we've been speaking, in the last couple of weeks, we've been speaking about the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and we've been talking specifically about the mitzvot, the commandments, ben Adam lechavero, between man, and the importance of these. Now, if anyone's heard me speak last year at the Tikkun Leil on Shavuot, you may have heard me speak in quite a lot of detail about how in the Parashat Yitro, which tells about the giving of the Torah on Sinai, how in that parasha the relationship between the Jewish people and Hashem is compared to that of a Chatan and Kala, between a bride and groom. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but just to give you a little example, we have the ketubah in the form of the luchot, or the tablets. We have the chuppah, the marriage canopy, in the form of Har Sinai being held over Bnei Israel's heads. I'm going to go a little bit further and say, firstly, in the beginning of Shemot, or the book of Exodus, where Hashem is freeing Bnei Israel from Egypt, we can compare that to a period of courtship during which the Chatan, the groom, is trying to impress the Kala, the bride, with acts of generosity and selflessness as well as power. During this courtship, so to speak, we could even say that the numerous miracles that were performed by Hashem were designed to build Bnei Israel's trust in how Hashem could and would look after Bnei Israel. In our analogy, it is only after a woman is persuaded how she's going to be looked after by the man, or that the man will be looking after her needs, does she feel safe marrying him. In the Parashat Yitro, we have the betrothal, or kiddushin, in the giving of the luchot, the tablets at Sinai. And again, I discussed the imagery at length on Tikkun Leil on Shavuot, and perhaps one day I'll do it again for the purposes of this channel when Shavuot comes around, please God. But finally, in this week's Parashat, Teruma, we have the building of the Mishkan, the building of the sanctuary, in which is the forerunner and the temporary mobile version, shall we say, of the Bet HaMikdash, of the temple. And this is likened to when the Chatan, the bridegroom, sets up a home and brings the bride into it. In real life, it's typically after marriage that the romantic aspect of the relationship fades a little, and the practical aspects of the couple sharing a life together takes over. The focus then becomes how, despite the loss of the romance of the courtship and the fading of the excitement of the wedding, a couple can then deepen their relationship over time through shared experiences and responsibilities. So continuing our analogy, following the courtship, in inverted commas, of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus of Egypt, the chuppah, the wedding canopy of Sinai, of Mount Sinai, and the establishment of Hashem's dwelling place, the Mishkan, amongst Bnei Israel, the question is how Bnei Israel should go about deepening their relationship with God. And the answer is that closeness to Hashem does not necessarily develop from these magnificent displays of courtship, or in our case of miracles, in the case of the Torah. But like romance, the impact of these fades over time. And this might explain why Bnei Israel very quickly and easily sinned time and time again and complained time and time again. The pizzazz, if you want, of the romance, the blaze of open miracles fades over time. So that would not help in deepening our relationship, nor does it develop only from perfecting our mitzvot ben adam lamakom, between us and God, as we have been discussing in the last couple of weeks. But as I have been at pains to say over the last couple of weeks, we deepen our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by emulating his goodness and loving kindness through commitment to mitzvot ben adam lechavero, between man and man. As the Gemara says, just as Hashem is merciful, so too we should be merciful. Just as Hashem is compassionate, so too we should be compassionate. In other words, it is through the mitzvot of ben adam lechavero, mitzvot, the commandments between man and man, the kind that we identified last week in Parashat Mishpatim, the perfection of our interactions with other human beings, that we deepen our relationship with God. So where these parashiot fall in the calendar is also no coincidence. I keep saying nothing in Torah is coincidence. Where these parashiot fall, where these portions of the Torah fall, is no coincidence. The parashiot of Mishpatim and Teruma fall around the beginning of the month of Adar. What's the next holiday? Purim. Purim, as I've said before, on Shavuot, the Gemara states that the acceptance of the Torah at Sinai was incomplete because of an element of coercion. The mountain was held over Bnei Israel's heads, possibly coercing Bnei Israel into accepting the Torah. And this is discussed at length. I'm not going to discuss it here. Only many years later, in connection with the miracle of Purim, did Bnei Israel fully accept the Torah, voluntarily, without coercion. This is where they said Kimu ve'kiblu. It said in the Megillah, they kept and they accepted the Torah. And significantly, this renewed acceptance occurred without any open miracles. So it happened even though the miracle of Purim was hidden. Miracles that Hashem made happen through so-called natural forces. Again, to highlight my point further, that this is connected with acceptance of Torah and our relationship with Torah and our relationship with God. What is the hallmark of the holiday of Purim? Mitzvot ben adam lechavero. It's mitzvot between man and man. We do matanot le'evyonim, gifts to the poor, and we do gifts of friendship, of mishloch manot, gifts of food, of friendship. The message is the same as that of last week's parasha, Mishpatim. That is the path of a deeper relationship with Hashem, the kind that is signified by the kimu and the kiblu of Purim, the acceptance at Purim, the voluntary acceptance of Purim, is not through open miracles. It's not through this courtship, this impressiveness of open miracles, or even through the perfection of mitzvot ben adam lamakom, of mitzvot between man and God, but rather, as we said last week in Parashat Mishpatim, it is the perfection of the mitzvot ben adam lechavero. It's the perfection between the mitzvot between man and man. So as we discussed last week, without us fulfilling the mitzvot ben adam lechavero, as a prerequisite, by the way, there is no relationship with God at all. In the same way as you have no small print without the heads of terms of the contracts. And only after we have mastered, or at least taken on, the laws between man and man in Parashat Mishpatim of last week, we are then commanded in this week's Parashat Teruma to build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. And the verse here famously says, "V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham." They should make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst them. The question, following everything we said last week, is if we've perfected our mitzvot ben adam lechavero, if we've perfected our mitzvot between man and man, what else do we now need to do to perfect our relationship with God? Interestingly, the Mishkan was the first thing that Bnei Israel made in the wilderness, and marks a turning point in the whole Exodus narrative. Until then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had done everything for the people. He had struck Egypt with plagues, he had taken them out of Egypt in a blaze of open miracles, he split the sea, he fed them manna from heaven, he gave them water from a rock. And except for the Shirat Hayam, for the Song of the Sea, all the people had done was complain and claim that they wanted to go back to Egypt. They had not appreciated anything that God had done for them. So now Hashem instructs Moshe to take the people through a role reversal. Instead of Hashem providing for them and doing things for them, they will do something for him. This was not about Hashem, by the way. Hashem didn't need a sanctuary. Hashem doesn't need a home on earth. This is about giving the people dignity, self-respect, self-esteem. In an act of tzimtzum, of self-limitation, so to speak, Hashem gave the people a chance to make something with their own hands, something they would value because collectively they had made it. Everyone who was willing could contribute from whatever they had, be it gold, silver, bronze, cloth, wood, oil, their skills, their labor, their time. Everyone had the opportunity to take part. Everyone had the opportunity to give. Women as well as men. The people as a whole, not just an elite class. It wasn't a certain class would give a certain amount or a certain thing. For the first time, Hashem was asking the people not just to follow his pillars of cloud and fire, not just to follow his commandments, but to be active and become builders and creators. They had to invest something of themselves in it, collectively and individually. As Rabbi Sachs Zecher Tzadik Livracha said, we value what we create. The effort we have put into something does not just change the object, it changes us. Hashem was giving Bnei Israel the dignity of being able to say, I helped build a house of God. Hence, says Rabbi Sachs, the unusual Hebrew word for contribution and the name of this week's parasha, Teruma, which means not just something we give, but something we lift up. The builders of the sanctuary lifted up their gift to God, and in the process of lifting, discovered that they themselves were uplifted. The greatest gift we can give to people is the gift to give them the chance to create. It is the one gift that turns a recipient into a giver. It gives them dignity. It shows that we trust them, that we have faith in them, and we believe they're capable of great things. The greater the labor, the greater the love for what we have made. Give your child, give your partner everything in life without them putting in the effort, and not only will they not appreciate what you've done for them and what you've given them, but you will also not be doing their characters any favors. They will feel useless. They'll feel unproven, without dignity, without self-esteem. Hashem is teaching us the essence of what our relationship should be. We start from the premise of acting with loving kindness, but we must also show the other person to do for themselves, to give them dignity and self-esteem. Each person in the relationship should be a giver, a builder, and the other person should permit them to do so. So Hashem commands, they should make me a mikdash, a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst them. And I'm sure many of you have heard this question before. Why does the verse say dwell amongst them? Surely the verse should say they should build me a sanctuary and I will dwell within it. Why does it say I will dwell amongst them? Build me a sanctuary and I will dwell amongst them. The answer is that we can only have the presence of God amongst us if we have built a mikdash, a sanctuary, a society in which people are cared for, a just society where people live in dignity and worth, in which they have invested of themselves. Only then can we merit the dwelling in the Shekhinah, in God's presence, in our midst, and bring peace and harmony in our world. Shabbat Shalom.